Is the camera on? Are you guys rolling yet?
Yes.
People around the country, stop calling my office and saying you can't hear. If I say, grab the microphone, never again the rest of my life, I'll be very happy, as well as watch your step. Everybody sat here for the last 3 trials I've had that have been televised knows that I try my darndest, but the only people I owe the duty to right now are the lawyers, the defendant, the jurors, and myself. Take it for what it's worth. I've told the lawyers, good luck to you out there. Are we ready? All right. I'll breathe, and let's get the jury in. All right, everybody, have a seat. Jurors, I hope I gave you enough time to eat. Everybody was good, so I figured it's right there. We can keep pushing forward. And as I said many, many times during the trial, it's just not something we can rush. So I'm not going to rush, but I figure if I had your food delivered, I can make the lawyers rush a little bit myself, but I don't want you to rush. Everybody's okay and all done? Okay, then fantastic. Ms. Howie, going to call the next witness? Ms. Vasata, come on up. And good afternoon to you, ma'am, and thanks for your patience. Watch your step. And once you get out here, if you'd raise your right hand and face Madam Clerk. All right, you're going to have a seat right up there. Please watch your step. And then if you do me a favor, you know you did that very firmly. And tell us your full name, and we know how to spell it.
Vanessa Vasata.
Terrific. Ms. Howitt, you may proceed.
Good afternoon. Where do you live?
Currently in Virginia.
And what do you do?
I work in a warehouse selling paper products, e-liquids.
And how long have you lived there?
About 4 years now.
And are you married?
I am.
And what is your wife's name?
Bernadette.
And what is Bernadette?
She's a military police officer.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
And what is your relationship to Christopher?
He's my younger brother.
So, we have already heard, are you all right?
Yes.
Okay. Quite a bit about your background. It sounds like it was pretty topsy-turvy. But how about your relationship with your siblings? How was it?
Like any other brother-sister relationship. I mean, we didn't always get along, but we always got through it. He was my support through my whole life.
There was a time you lived separately, right?
Yes.
Okay, and who did you live with during that time?
My grandmother.
And what was that like for you?
Abusive.
And in terms of how?
I would get in trouble with my grandmother a lot. She was very abusive with hitting and spanking with objects, hands.
Were you glad when you all came back together again, when Danielle and your mother were together?
Yeah, I love being with my siblings.
So what was your life like when Danielle was in the house?
We were very active, always in sports. We always had fun things to do.
Like what kinds of things?
We had block parties with the neighbors and go to Chris's volleyball games, football games.
Would you, now let me ask you this, who do you consider your father?
Juan, Lennon.
Have you always, even though you haven't always lived with him, maintained a close relationship with him? Mm-hmm. And would he come to some of the games? So that period of time was about how long that Danielle was in the home?
I have no idea. Middle school, high school.
And you were going to what school there?
I went to Independence Middle School and then Jupiter High School.
Okay. Did you graduate from high school?
No, ma'am.
Did Christopher graduate?
Yes, ma'am.
So when Danielle left,
Mhm.
did that change sort of the environment in your home?
Yes. My mom was very quiet. I'm sure she was depressed, in her room a lot, working a lot.
And so you kids just kind of did what you needed to do?
Of course.
You're the oldest, and did you take sort of a special role in that position?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up being somewhat of a parent to my siblings.
So when you have kind of these moves and changes in your life, did that make you feel even more sort of compelled to parent your siblings? So after Danielle leaves, your mom is kind of to herself. And what about you kids? You start sort of going your own ways at that point.
Yeah.
Did you stay in Jupiter?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. But did it seem that the family sort of started spreading out a bit?
Yes.
That closeness and family activities were over at that point?
Yes.
Let me ask you about Christopher. Growing up, did he have a habit of pulling out his hair?
Yes, at one point.
And what can you tell us about that?
He would constantly pick the hairs on the crown of his head to where he would almost be bald. I mean, sometimes he just kept doing it. If you told him not to, he'd stop for the time being.
Almost like he couldn't help it.
Mm-hmm.
Did there come a time when you and Christopher worked together someplace?
We worked at an assisted living center together.
And what did you do there?
We served elderly food and helped them clean up and things like that.
And Christopher did that as well?
Mm-hmm.
And how was he working with the patients?
Great.
Was he? And then do you know of him having other jobs after that?
He worked at the Tequesta Country Club for a while.
As a server or a busboy or something?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know the Deskin family?
Yes.
And what was Christopher's relationship with them?
Sam was his best friend. He was always over there.
After Danielle left, did he start spending even more time over there? Did there come a time when he was basically living there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did your mother start another relationship?
Yes.
And who was that with?
Teresa Mays.
And did anything change in the household when, did Teresa move in?
Eventually, yes.
What's that?
Eventually, yes.
Okay. And was anything different at that point?
My mom and her drank a lot. I mean, I don't believe T was our biggest fans. I don't believe she wanted my mom to have us in the house.
And did she seem to feel the same way about Christopher?
Absolutely.
It's pretty clear that she didn't want him around.
Yes.
So, did there come a time when you learned that Juan sold drugs to support his family?
When I was older, yeah.
Did you know anything about Christopher's involvement with him?
No.
Were there some other challenges in his household?
Yes.
And what were those?
His wife abused narcotics.
And how would that affect them?
They would argue a lot about it.
Did she go to jail for that?
She did.
And even when you were small, was there a time that you accidentally ingested narcotics?
I believe so.
And about,
I think I thought it was an Altoid or something.
and what did it turn out to be?
I don't remember. I just know it was white, but I have no idea.
Did you later think it was maybe crack cocaine?
Could have been.
Do you have any contact with Danielle?
On and off.
And has that been a little bit of a point of contention with your mom?
I'm sorry?
Has that been a point of contention with your mom after Danielle left, that you maintained a relationship with her at all?
We don't really have a relationship. I mean, sometimes she asks me how I'm doing or things like that, but I think for the most part she tries to stay away because she knows my mom doesn't want her to have a relationship with us.
And what about Jennifer Kearns? Do you remember your time with her?
Not really. I remember bits and pieces of her being around.
And after she was out of your life, you did not maintain a relationship with her either?
No.
So, did you actually see any conflict between, after Teresa moved in, where Teresa was pretty outspoken about wanting Christopher out of the house?
I remember him being on the computer and her telling him to get out of the house and him saying, "This isn't your house, it's my mom's house." And obviously my mom's not going to stand up and kick him out.
But she was pretty adamant about, "I want you out."
Mm-hmm.
Now, after Christopher's out of high school, and did he help your mom and your sister financially?
He'd help us in any way they could.
And tell us about that. What was he like with regards to helping you guys?
Anytime I called him, if I needed a ride, if I needed my phone bill paid, he was always there.
And how about just for sort of comfort and support?
Support is there.
So I know this is hard for you. But has Christopher always been a loyal brother?
Yes.
How else would you describe?
Compassionate about his sisters. Loving. I always called him my big little brother. He's always younger than me, but he was my big brother growing up.
And we've seen some pictures of all of you as a family.
Mm-hmm.
So I know this is all emotional for you, but did you have fun with Christopher?
Yes.
And how? What would you do? What was he like?
We were playing hide and go seek once. He put me in the dryer. He's pushed me down a hill before, laughing and pointing at me. I mean, he'd always pick on me, but he'd always love me right after.
Did you laugh a lot as
Of course.
a family
Yes.
with your siblings? And to this day, you feel, how do you, have any doubt that he loves you too. I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Vanessa.
Steve, thank you very much, ma'am. Watch your step. And defense? Joanna Walsh? Okay. Ms. Walsh, come on up. Good afternoon. Thanks for your patience. Watch your step there. Once you come out here, if you raise your right hand. All right. Follow Deputy Dunkley. Watch your step getting up in there. And once you get yourself situated, get that microphone where it's directly in front of you. Speak directly into it. And once you're all settled in, give us your full name and spell your last name for us.
All right, my name is Joanna Walsh, W-A-L-S-H.
All right. Ms. Howlett, you may proceed.
Ms. Walsh, what city do you live in?
I live in Jupiter.
And what do you do for a living?
I am a middle school teacher.
And how long have you been doing that?
15 years.
And you've survived?
Yeah.
So do you know Christopher Vasata?
I do. Chris was in my math class when he was in 8th grade.
So that was a number of years ago.
It was.
And since then, I'm sure you've had lots and lots of students.
I have.
Do you have any particular memories of Christopher?
I remember Chris's smile, mostly. He had a smile that could light up the room. He was a lighthearted kid who, my class was not anybody's favorite class. Being a math teacher, it's usually the least favorite of everybody's classes. But Chris was always the type of kid who would try, even if it wasn't easy. And, you know, he was just that kind of kid.
How did he get along with the other kids in the class?
He got along. He had friends, and he would, honestly, I felt like Chris and I had a good relationship in the sense that if other kids were talking too much and I couldn't get them settled down, because when I had Chris, it was earlier in my teaching career, and I think he could see when I was getting frustrated. There were times he would tell everybody to knock it off. Like if it was some of his friends or something, he would be like, stop. And they would. Like Chris always knew when enough was enough.
And it seemed that he was almost looking out for you a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So did any parent have much of a role in his education?
I don't remember ever having communication with Chris's parents. If I reached out, it would have been through email and occasionally a phone call, but not having a phone in my classroom, it was usually email because the callbacks would usually be routed through the front office, which would then result in a serious delay in being able to communicate with anyone. But Chris's parents were not like overly involved in his education. When I had him, I don't even recall meeting them ever. And I taught Vanessa as well. So I had Vanessa and then I had Chris, and I don't recall meeting the parents ever.
Was Chris good at math? How did he do with math?
From what I remember, it was not something that came easy to him, but he was not going to openly ask questions and let people know that it was not easy for him. But a lot of the kids I taught, it wasn't easy. It really wasn't. And so I think he just kind of flew under the radar, so to speak. Like a lot of students in middle school do. Like there's the high achievers,
that will go out of their way to ask questions, get more information, try to have knowledge brought on to them, like just soak everything up. There's the ones who fly under the radar, who just want to get by, as long as they're passing and they're not a behavior problem, you're not reaching out to anybody, they survive. And then there's the ones who really struggle but really want to try to understand, so they will constantly ask questions. And then there's also the ones that are behavior problems, and that wasn't Chris.
I would imagine some kids that struggle, especially in middle school, it comes out as a behavior problem or sort of a defiance on doing things.
Absolutely. And Chris was never, that I can recall, disrespectful in class. He was not disruptive. He was not the type of kid that you were having to send to another teacher because he was a behavior problem. Honestly, I really felt like I had an ally in Chris in my classroom, because our classes were large and our school had a very diverse population at that time, because it was newer. And so No Child Left Behind was enacted, and we had different groups in our school from the area. We had kids that were sent into our school from Riviera Beach. We had kids from Jupiter Farms. We had kids from Abacoa, and we had kids from the Heights. And they were kind of put in like one small area and told to get along and get an education and do what they needed to do, and that did not always work. But Chris was not among the troublemakers in school. He was a happy kid in some senses, in the way that he would smile if he could see that I was struggling, because early on I had a lot of struggles. He would laugh at my lame jokes. He would cooperate.
Almost like he was trying to help you in this position.
Yes, he was loyal. He definitely was.
And when you heard about this case, did you remember the Christopher you had in middle school?
I did. It was really hard for me when I heard about this case, because I also knew the victims from my school. I taught one of them, and one was very active in my church, and the other one I interacted with in the hallway. And they were all great kids. They really were. They were all amazing kids. And Chris was among those included. I was devastated, and I know the Chris that I knew in 8th grade was not an evil kid. And believe me, there are kids out there that I question, like, my own safety. I never felt that way about Chris. I never felt that he was the type of kid that was destined for misfortune the rest of his life. He was not the kind of kid that I would have thought would be where he is today.
Thank you.
Any cross? Thank you, Ms. Walsh. You may step down. Watch your step, okay? And defense? You may. Robert Craig? Drake, I'm sorry. How are you, sir?
Well, sir.
Watch your step. Raise your right hand.
Do you topics for affirmative evidence you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
All right, you know the drill. Just do me one favor, make sure you talk into that microphone.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Robert Drake,
And Mr. Drake, what community do you live in? What city?
Jupiter.
And what do you do for a living? Are you in law enforcement?
Yes, I am. I'm a police officer.
And how long have you been a police officer?
30 years.
And as a police officer, have you worked in a variety of divisions, from road patrol to complicated investigations?
Yes.
And do you know this young man, Christopher Vasata?
Yes, I do.
How do you know him?
He grew up in my neighborhood.
And when you say he grew up in your neighborhood, what ages approximately do you think you had contact with him?
I'm going to say between the ages of 10 and 17, I believe.
So tell me about your interactions with him.
My family had just moved into the neighborhood, and there was a young couple there with several kids, and Chris Vasata was the age of one of my sons, and they became friends.
And when you say a young couple, who are you talking about?
Debbie and Danielle DePasquale, and she became my very close friend.
Danielle did?
Yes.
Did you have much interaction with Debbie?
Limited, only really with Danielle, that we would do family things together.
And so tell us a little bit about the kinds of things you would do.
We did a cross Florida run with Debbie, Chris. We went to church. We would take them to church with us on a couple of occasions. And then we'd have block parties with all the kids. There was a lot of young families, or families with young kids, about our kids' age. And just things like that. The kids would get together and play video games, what kids do.
And so what kind of neighborhood kid was Christopher?
I liked him. He was with my son. I wouldn't have trusted. If I thought there was anything going on, there wouldn't have been a relationship there. I never saw any of the kids in the neighborhood getting in trouble. They were just kids. They were skateboarding and that kind of stuff.
And how about involvement in organized sports?
Yeah, I ran a youth sports program up there, and Chris and his sister Becky, they were involved in soccer and volleyball and all that stuff. Yeah.
And what was the name of the youth sports?
It's the sporting organization in Jupiter for the youth.
So was Christopher was involved with sports?
Yes, he was.
Would he help you with sporting events?
No, but he was in the programs that I coached or I oversaw. I saw him all the time, and so was Becky, his younger sister. They played soccer and all that.
Were they enthusiastic participants or participants that kind of dragged their way in and had to
No,
play?
they were eager to. But Dee was always anxious for Chris to be involved in whatever we were doing. There were no men over there at the house. It was, the female couple and the sisters and their female friends. So she always encouraged me to reach out to him or wanted him to be involved in what we were doing.
And did he seem to be drawn to you and to your activities as well?
He was like any other young guy that doesn't have a dad around, I guess. And yeah, I would say he liked to hang around me. With my son, it was, just that. I'm certainly not one of the kids, but I would do stuff with my son, and he'd tag along. We'd do stuff. Nothing crazy or expensive, just, normal neighborhood stuff.
Now, there came a time that Danielle left the household. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And did you know whether she was able to maintain any sort of relationship with Christopher or the girls?
No, we talked about it a lot. It was very sad for her. That's about the time I didn't see Chris again either. Danielle, and this was over a decade of conversations. So she believed that she was being punished for whatever happened in the relationship, and I didn't get into the details of the relationship other than it was a falling out. And she had told me that Debbie had punished her by preventing her to be around the children. It broke her heart because over the years that I saw them, I didn't see a mother in Debbie. It's just what I felt. I saw the only parent that I was aware of that wasn't a criminal or something was Dee. I know that Dee told me that she feared that Debbie was allowing Chris to go and be with a man I only knew as Juan or John. I don't know if the man, didn't know him then. But she described him as a drug dealer and that he'd been in the system. And so I know when they split up, Debbie had told me that they were, that Chris was visiting him. I don't know the basis, but that terrified her. But she never got to talk to him again, as far as I know.
And some of that was because Danielle felt like Christopher could be vulnerable to...
Yeah, well, it's going to be, hanging around the cop, one thing, or hanging around the drug dealer, I guess. I reckon it's reasonable.
When you say you never saw Christopher again, did you have any opportunities to run into him in the community after that?
Yeah, it's a small community. Well, it was a small community. At Publix or at Duffy's, yeah, I'd run into him occasionally. It was very casual and just a, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? That's all. Nothing more than that. But yeah, I saw him around town.
And did he ever talk to you about sort of desires for sort of professional development?
Yeah, I don't know, this is around the time that Debbie and Danielle split. I know my son had moved in, so it was right when they graduated, so probably about 18. And he had talked about being a cop or a firefighter or something like that. But, yeah.
So in talking with you about it, looking a little bit for your advice as to how to
Not advice,
do it?
but encouragement. And I said, you don't want to be a cop. It's not the job nowadays. We joked about becoming a firefighter, and it was that casual. It was really not much more than that.
He knew you were a police officer, obviously.
Yeah, everyone did.
Okay. So, can you just maybe tell us what your observations were of who Christopher was during that period of time you were involved with him?
Well, as a kid, that's all I really knew him as. He was a normal kid. I wouldn't have trusted my kids to be around him, certainly, if I thought there was anything going on. He was respectful, funny, kind. Never saw him in a fight or, I don't know, just a normal kid in the neighborhood. Someone I wouldn't be repelled from.
Was he a kid you sort of cared about, knowing he didn't have a man in his life?
Well, yeah, I dealt with the youth organization I dealt with had a lot of single parents, and yeah, you always you have a heart for them, sure, yeah.
And you did then?
Yeah, of course.
Do you now?
Yeah, I did.
Thank you.
Judy Cross? You may step down, sir. Thank you. Deskin, please. Good afternoon, sir. Thanks for your patience. Watch your step. Raise your right hand.
We solemnly swear or affirm that we swear about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay, you're going to have a seat right up there. Watch yourself getting in there. And once you get yourself situated, grab that microphone, speak directly into it for me. And once you're all comfortable, if you would state your full name for the record and slowly spell your last name.
My name is Samuel Patrick, D-E-S-K-I-N, Deskin.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. How old are you, sir?
I am 26.
And how do you know Christopher Vasata?
Chris is my best friend ever since he moved here, or moved to Jupiter, 7th grade. We had a couple classes together, did sports together. We, second day of school, if not first, best friends immediately.
And what grade was that?
7th.
Tell us how you immediately became best friends.
Well, so, like very in the beginning, we had intensive reading was our first class together. And we were both there, probably not for the right reasons. And we would kind of be, the teacher would talk to us, and then we'd have we'd know all the answers. Like, it was just a class that was lower than our ability to read. And then so she kind of was mean to us because we didn't need to be in that class. And she's like, I got to get you guys transferred out of here and go up to advanced or something, or at least regular.
What did you like about Christopher off the bat?
He was nice, very nice to me. Friends with our whole class. The class that we had at the time was like 4 or 5 of the guys that I've been with since kindergarten. Then he ended up playing rec baseball with them and just knew all them throughout. So it ended up being
So
a
it
good time.
sounds like when you went to middle school, did you grow up all your life in Jupiter?
Yes.
So it sounds like by the time you got into middle school, you already kind of had a friend group from elementary.
Most definitely.
And obviously Christopher was not from Jupiter,
Correct.
right? And he just kind of was able to become a part of your friend group.
Yes.
Did he fit into that group well?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
What kind of role did he play within that group?
The friend to everybody. I mean, everybody was nice to him. He was nice to all of us. Could do the things that we did. Like 6th grade, I got a boat. He came on a boat with us. We wakeboarded, tubed. He definitely liked being part of the guy clique that we had. And then he started sleeping over on weekends. And then was just like, hey, I live with a bunch of sisters. You guys got a group of 7, 8 guys. And came over and hung out with us forever. Just kept going.
You got a boat when you were very young.
Yes.
And I think you may have gotten more boats as you got a little older.
Yeah, my dad had 15 boats since I was, just before I was born up until 6th grade, and just kept getting them not workable and then would make them work. And then got me a 13-foot whaler when I was in 6th grade, so I had that. I learned to scuba dive. He'd come diving with us, drive the boat, we'd fish. Just having fun.
And it sounds like you guys spent a lot of time out on the water.
Yeah,
Did your house actually kind of connect to water?
it did. It connect to the ocean. It was on the Jones Creek, kind of by, it went under the Indiantown Bridge and then under Center Street and then right out to the Loxahatchee River, Sandbar, and then to A1A and to the ocean.
I want to show you some exhibits. This is Defense 16, I believe, admitted without objection.
Okay.
So that's me on the left, our buddy Brian Denton in the middle, Chris on the right. We went up to Peck's Lake and a 16-foot Hughes redfish that we had. And in the wintertime, of course being in Florida, it doesn't look like winter, but the water gets cold enough and they all run and feed. So at Peck's Lake, we got probably a total of 40 fish that day, and those were the keeper of the Spanish mackerel and kingfish. Then we had a snapper. Oh, definitely different hair back then.
Then this was kind of normal stuff for you and Christopher to do? Hang out with friends, go fishing?
Yeah, this dock is our neighbor's dock. He had a fillet table and we clean it right there. But it was just being not 16 and having a boat, that was just what we went and do. Oh, we live on the water, go on the boat, go home from school, go for it.
Did you meet his mother, Debbie?
Yeah,
And how did she seem to you?
she was nice. Definitely nice to me. We had what came to be called Sam Do Night, and it was that we always I'd eat at their house once a month maybe, and her and Danielle would make this big fondue pot, and everybody would just have like their own skewer color, and we just sat around the island in the house, and we just made shrimp, chicken, steak.
And so
It was
this
just
was
a
when
good time.
Danielle, or also known as Dee, was in his
Yeah, it was
life.
8th grade, I would say, 8th, 9th grade.
Did they strike you as a wealthy family?
No, but not as a poor family.
And did you introduce Christopher to your family?
Yeah, yes. He knows all of my family. He'd be at the house Christmas dinner night where 30 people come over, and we've done giant pig roasts. He'd help my dad set up the big fire, and him and my brother would be the guys that would station different things, and he was definitely part of our family and knew everybody in my family.
Now, after middle school, you go to high school.
Yep.
And where did you attend?
Jupiter High School.
And did you, same grade, went to Jupiter, or went up to Jupiter High School the same time as Christopher?
Yes.
And were you guys still best friends?
We were. So we had classes in 9th grade, played sports. He did track for a while in the beginning, and then just one day said, you know what, I don't really like running anymore. What are you doing? Oh, it's volleyball tryouts right now. He's like, oh, I played with Dee, and we fooled around. Let me go figure it out. Made the team, and then we played volleyball all across the board. Next year, we're in 10th grade. We meet Jordan Agnon, and the three of us played on tour, indoor, sand, did tours across Florida. Me and Chris would travel. I had an expedition, and one year we put a twin-size bed in the back, put all the seats down, and me and him drove to Clearwater like 2 in the morning to make a 6 a.m. clock-in time, I guess, to play.
Did you win?
Second, I think. Volleyball looks like. Yep, number 20, bottom right side with big curly hair. Chris is next to me at number 12.
And so Jordan also
Yes. Well, I knew Jordan. I knew who he was, Jerry Thomas, Independence. He played on the volleyball team, Independence. So I knew him up until then. He knew my little brother. They played basketball together.
And
So then it was just easier to become great friends with him. We were already like halfway there.
So it sounds like you and Christopher had a lot of time during high school.
Yes. This is the first time my little brother Jake decided that we should all make pizza. There's another picture somewhere around here, and it's us throwing the pizza up. And I think my brother does it and drops it. But this is in my kitchen in Jupiter Woods.
During the summers, did you, Christopher, and Jordan spend a lot of time together?
Yes. Boating, and then not boating, summertime was volleyball. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of tournaments, sand tournaments, and then they played club together.
It sounds like you guys did an awful lot together almost every day,
Yes.
many hours a day.
Yep. When not in school.
Did Christopher sleep over at your house?
Yes, he did. Weekends, so late 7th, 8th grade, and then pretty much permanent all of high school.
So he started sleeping over more and more and more. And by the last couple of years of high school, was he basically living with you and your parents?
Yeah, at 7th and 8th grade, my brother lived in, we had the same room, and then we had a guest bedroom, and then we kind of like stopped having guests, like relatives, bought a house down here, and then we just had an open room. My brother moved into that room, and then in my room I had 2 twin-sized beds separate. One was up high with a desk under it, and then one was on the side. And then I still had the 2 armoires. One was my brother's, one was mine. And then as my brother Jake went out to the other room, just slowly, weekend by weekend, eventually we had a full armoire of my stuff, Chris's stuff, and then it was us. Jake would always be in our room. They'd play video games at night, do stuff on the computer.
You almost got your own room.
Yeah, almost, but that's fine.
Did you like having Christopher around at your house?
Yeah.
How about your parents? Did they see this as a burden?
No, they definitely not. He helped with different stuff, yard work, and one time we had a hole in the shed, and then I don't know what happened. We couldn't find a ladder or something, and Chris just jumps on the roof, climbs up on the thing, and him and my dad fix this edging on the side shed and the roof. Helped hang Christmas lights. They do.
How about with your brother, Jake? Younger brother, right?
Yep.
How was Christopher with him?
Good. He was like his older brother. At one point in time in high school, I worked a lot at night in restaurant, and then I'd come home and it'd be both of them playing video games together. But they're always together. It was good.
I understand that you have a pretty big extended family.
Yes.
And did Christopher meet them?
Yeah. My dad's the oldest of 6. A lot of them are married. I have a lot of cousins. But on Christmas time, they would all come to our house for dinner. And then even birthdays that we had at our house or our grandfather's house, which is on the water. And me and Chris used to go to those parties by boat. We'd just take the boat, the family would go in the cars, we'd leave like 30 minutes earlier and then go by boat and be there for that.
And Christopher was around during the holidays just like any other member of the Deskin family?
Yeah, he would go to his. Like if he didn't go to his dad's house, like down at Lake Worth, or would do his mom in the morning and then come back to us like midday.
And spend the rest of it?
Yeah, like even the evening, like for dinner time.
With him living with you, did you notice Christopher pulling his hair?
Yeah, sometimes.
And what kind of stuff would he be doing when he...
I mean, I don't know if I notice it as like he'd do it because of nervousness or anxiousness. I think eventually at some point it just became a habit. But then he stopped doing it and then pick it back up again.
Did Christopher get in fights at school?
Not that he started. There was a fight, but it wasn't. It was more protecting. The one I remember is him protecting a girl.
Tell us about that.
See, I wasn't even there. They just told me, him and another buddy told me a story, but him and our other friend Andrew left class and walk into the hallways before the bell rings, nobody's here, and there's just a male beating up on a girl. And then our friend, like, I think ran and went to find a teacher or something, and Chris just split it up and beat up the other kid.
Sounds like he was a pretty protective and
Yes.
loyal person.
Yeah, not troublemaking and starting fights.
Do you consider him, would you describe him as a loyal friend?
Yes, most definitely.
And why? Why loyal?
Anything I'd ever need or anybody else ever need, he'd be there, especially if he could definitely help. We've had buddies that just need rides to different places, and he's like, oh, I'll drive you. Just take them on, and no inconvenience. It's all good.
Actually, I don't know if this was after high school. Did Christopher start working at the Sequesta Country Club?
Yeah, 11th grade.
And did you as well?
Yes.
Who got the job first?
We started together. He got the job from one of his friends that was a server there for years, I think in and out of college.
And how long did you guys work there?
Me, a year and a half, him longer. He stayed, I left and went to Outback with 2 of our other buddies. They needed help and I went over there. And then I think immediately after I left, Jordan started. And then so it was him and Jordan, and then even a little bit after that, my brother started there. But we all worked at the Quezon Country Club at one point.
So Christopher worked there for a few years. Do you know what he did there?
Bus, food ran. We weren't 18, so we couldn't serve.
And that's kind of the same job that you, your brother,
Yeah.
Jordan did, was bussing tables and
Yes.
stuff like that?
And I think Jordan might even did something in the kitchen, expediter,
Was,
as well as front of the house.
was Christopher a good worker?
Yeah, he was the best. He could strong pick up big heavy plates that like a lot of the other girls couldn't do, and quickly take out trash. And he already knew what needed to be done, so it didn't need to be done without being said or told to. Just did it immediately.
And towards the end, when he stopped working at Sequester Country Club, is that when he got a little bit deeper into the drug dealing?
Yes, after high school.
Do you know who Lacey Nicken is?
Yes,
Tell us about
she
her.
was our neighbor. Her little brother Blake was best friends with me since they moved there. Their kindergarten year, my second grade. Lacey's our age, our grade, and then somewhere along the way of him staying there, they started dating. 10th grade, late 9th grade maybe.
And do you know how long they stayed together approximately?
A year or two after high school, I would say 5 years,
So,
and the best guess.
fairly long relationship for that age.
Yeah.
Do you know if Lacey was Christopher's first girlfriend?
I don't know if first girlfriend, but definitely the longest girlfriend, first real girlfriend, I guess.
Serious girlfriend? Did Christopher seem to be in love with her?
Yeah, and same her to him.
It sounds like Lacey was kind of already in your friend group when they started dating.
Yeah, our parents are very close. Our whole neighborhood was.
When Christopher and Lacey got together, did they kind of go off on their own, or did you guys still hang out a lot?
Oh, we did stuff together. She come on a boat with us. She's certified to dive. Blake is too, so we all had the similar interest. Wakeboarding, tubing, boating.
So after you guys graduate high school, what did you do after you graduated high school?
The week we graduated, I got a serving job at Duffy's Sports Grill, and I was there for 4 years.
And what do you do now?
Now I own a handyman business, as well as serve at Calaveras Cantina.
Do you also do some work in real estate? Or fixing homes or something like that?
Right, so part of being like handyman, I help out in housing.
Did Lacey go to college after she graduated?
I think PBSC for a little bit.
And Palm Beach State College?
Yeah.
And did Christopher go there too?
Yes, he did.
Did they stay in Jupiter after high school to stay together?
I mean, I don't know specifics, but that is possible. I know Lacey never wanted to leave. Like, I don't think she wanted to go off to college anywhere. She wanted to stay.
And after graduation, you and Christopher still stayed close?
Yes.
When did Christopher stop living with your parents?
When we sold the house, and then we moved to Abacoa for a couple of years, he just went back home at that point.
Were there any ill feelings between
No.
your parents and Chris?
Not at all.
Did they still love and care about him?
Yes, most definitely.
And did Christopher still see your parents and your family even after he moved out?
I don't know. Like he came over to the house a couple of times, but I mean it's not like same as living there.
Have you ever seen Christopher using marijuana?
Yes,
When did that start?
after high school, sometime.
And I don't think you'll be in trouble for this. Have you also partaken in that with Christopher at some point?
With once.
Do you remember how Christopher got the marijuana?
From somebody he knew. I think from his dad. I think from his stepdad.
From his stepdad? How long did you stay in touch with Christopher after high school?
The whole time. Yeah.
And you knew that at a certain point he started dealing drugs as his main occupation?
Yes.
Did you really know how deep into drug dealing he was?
No, he didn't talk specifics with me. I didn't ask.
Do you think he kind of was trying to shield you from that side of things?
Probably, just to keep me safe from not. Because if I didn't know, I didn't know.
And over the years, did you notice an increase in Christopher's marijuana use?
Only at like the rate of just as you get more tolerance towards of a specific something.
Did you ever see him use shatter? Or did you know that he used shatter?
No, I don't. I wasn't ever like in a group like that. It's just like I just don't. All right, we're gonna go to their house and like smoke. I probably wasn't there.
I understand that you knew Mr. Sean Henry.
Yes,
I think he was maybe your.
he was my youth group leader for 7th and 8th grade.
Did you know Luke Katsukos?
I did. He played shortstop for me for our church softball team. And I knew him in and out of middle school, junior high. He was Jerry Thomas for like 2 years.
The softball league you mentioned, that's like something that you were in charge of, and it was through the church, right?
It wasn't like through the church, like the church has no part of it. It was just, I joined our church's team years prior, and then when the church had no affiliation with it anymore, I just kept it going.
Did Christopher ever play on that team?
He did. He did sub for me whenever I need a sub. He played 2-3 seasons, I would say.
Have you been in touch with Christopher since he's been in jail?
Yes.
And obviously you can't call him.
Right,
but
he just
can call
called.
you. And does he call you?
Yes, he does.
And how often do you still talk?
I would say at least once a month. It's more if it's too little, it's because either I'm at work and can't answer phone, or I miss it, where it's not as easy to just call back. It's not really a thing. I got it.
What sorts of things do you guys talk about?
Just how, like, he'd ask me how it is out here, like, oh, what's Blake doing? What's your brother doing? How's the family? How's the business?
Just inquiring about the
Yeah,
well-being
just
of your family.
see how we're doing.
Those calls can be pretty expensive. They cost something every minute, right?
Yes.
So even when Christopher goes to prison, whether it's death row or maximum security for the rest of his life, do you think that you'll continue to be his friend and support him?
Yes.
Do you think that Christopher can play a positive role in the lives of others from prison?
Most definitely.
Do you think that he could touch the lives of other prisoners in a positive way?
Yes, he can.
And what makes you say so sure about those things?
Because Chris isn't a bad guy. He, like if even, like in prison, if somebody's having trouble with something, he will have a way to help them get through it, or just through life experiences that he's had, and can relate to all different sorts of people.
Sounds like Christopher has been one of your best friends since 7th grade.
Yes.
And what the punishment will be for the crimes he committed will be determined through this proceeding. Is there anything else you would like the individuals on this jury to know about Christopher?
That Chris isn't a bad guy. Loves pretty much everybody he comes in contact with, and people like him. And he is my best friend.
Any cross? Sam, I want to thank you for talking loudly. Thank you. Watch your step. Defense, call your next witness. It's okay. Jurors, you okay to keep moving forward? No, anybody need a break? Everybody's all right? Okay. Ms. Ferrer, you're still under oath. You know the rest of it.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back. We called you back on the stand to speak about an individual named Lacey Nickenen. Can you tell me, through the course of your work on this case, who that person is and her significance?
Lacey Nickenen was Christopher's girlfriend in high school, 10, 11, and 12th grade, I believe.
And she's not here today, which is why you're on the stand. Do you inform the jury about the circumstances?
Lacey was hesitant to testify today because of this trial being in social media, but also because she knows about Juan Lena's drug dealing.
But she was a little bit scared that if she said something in court regarding those things like the drug dealing from Juan, there could be consequences for her. Did you have the opportunity to meet her?
Yes, we did.
And I believe that you have a report that you generated with regards to your investigation.
Yes, I do.
Would you please read it to the jury?
Lacey Nickenen was Christopher's girlfriend for 3 years, beginning in high school. They are the same age. She called him Chris. They broke up about a year after they graduated from Jupiter High School. Attorney Crystal Kim and I met Lacey on Wednesday, May 15 at Starbucks in Jupiter. It was crowded, so we went to an empty Chinese restaurant in the same shopping plaza. Lacey is a tall, trim, white woman with long, straight blonde hair. She was wearing shorts, a sleeveless blouse, and sandals. Lacey told me she was scared to testify because of heavy media presence and because she saw Juan Lena's drug operation. Lacey met Chris in Jupiter High School. She and her family lived across the street from the Deskins, where Christopher lived for the last 2 years of high school. They were friends for a year before they started dating when they were 16 or 17 years old. Lacey was and still is friends with Sam Deskin. Her younger brother was friends with Chris, Sam Deskin, Sam's younger brother, and Jordan Agnan all throughout high school. Lacey remembered when Daniel Di Pasquale, or Dee, was living with Debbie and the kids. She said Chris was good when Dee was around. The house was clean and the kids were fed. After Dee left, the house was messy and is in disarray. There was no food, which Debbie and Chris argued about. Chris was hurt when Dee left. There was no explanation given to him or his sisters. Dee had parents whom Lacey described as super nice, who were like grandparents to the Vasata kids, and that relationship was also abruptly cut off. Lacey recalled that Chris and his sisters secretly met up with Dee to see Christmas lights after Dee and Debbie broke up. Dee told them that she wanted to stay with them, but Debbie did not want her back. Debbie totally withdrew after Dee left. She slept and worked. Chris tried to cheer her up. Chris was really good in hopes of getting Debbie's attention. He got good grades and he did well in sports to make her proud of him, but Debbie didn't care. She simply was not around. Lacey said that Chris wanted a close connection with Debbie. He was frustrated and hurt that she didn't want that or she wasn't available for that. Lacey said that Chris cried at the drop of a hat when he talked about Debbie or when Lacey said sweet things to him. Lacey described him as super sensitive. Chris confided to Lacey that he was hurt by how Debbie treated him. For example, Debbie got tons of Christmas presents for his sisters and something like a pair of socks for him. Debbie washed her daughter's clothes but would not wash Chris's. Debbie would at least get a cake for her daughter's birthdays, but she did not do that for Chris. Lacey remembers when Teresa Mays, or T, came into the picture. Lacey said that at first, T was fine, but it got bad when she moved in with a lot of stuff and 2 dogs and took over the house. T wanted her and Debbie to party a lot, and Debbie started coming home drunk. Lacey recalled a time when Debbie passed out outside before making it to the house, and T screamed and laughed that Debbie was drunk, and Chris went outside, picked Debbie up, and carried her in. Chris spent more and more time at Sam Deskin's house, and by senior year, Chris was living completely at Sam's house. According to Lacey, even though he tried to pretend that these things didn't matter to him, it was important to Chris to feel like he belonged somewhere. It was important to Chris to have friends and for people to like him. Chris pulled his hair out all throughout the relationship. It was compulsive. He did it regardless of what he was doing, watching TV, driving, or sitting in class. There was a bald spot around his ears on both sides of his head. Lacey and Chris started smoking weed during their senior year in high school. They would go by the water and smoke together. Lacey and Chris stayed in Jupiter, and they went to Palm Beach State College together for a few semesters after high school. David would promise to pay for classes and then backed out after Chris had signed up for all his classes. Lacey thinks Chris might have asked Sam for the money to attend one of the semesters. Chris told Lacey that he was going to go to work with his dad, but Lacey did not know this involved drugs. Initially, Chris lied and said that Juan was a self-made millionaire. Later, Lacey went to Juan's small duplex in Lake Worth and found out that Chris grew up there. Lacey called him out over the lie, and Chris blew her off, but she described Juan as nice and very fatherly. Lacey said that when she found out that Juan was a drug dealer, she told Chris to not work for him. Chris told her it was just temporary. Lacey saw Juan's stash house. She went with Chris because Chris was picking up 1 pound of weed from his dad, which he put in the hood of the car. Lacey didn't see anything weird except 2 big guys with dogs. But eventually Chris got all the stuff he sold from Juan. Lacey said that Chris went from dealing dime bags to bigger quantities because that's what Juan wanted. In her opinion, Juan saw Jupiter as an open market that he couldn't tap into before. Lacey said Juan was using Chris like a mule to sell his drugs up north. Lacey remarked that Juan made a lot of money off of Chris. When asked what was in it for Chris, Lacey said Chris got tons of approval from Juan for dealing. Juan didn't seem concerned with the consequences to Chris if he got caught. The drug business became a type of father-son bonding time. He gave Juan more reasons to call Chris, and Chris started getting invited to places by Juan, like barbecues and family gatherings with Juan's brothers and nephews. As far as Lacey remembers, before Chris started selling drugs, Juan reached out to Chris about once a year. Lacey said that once dealing drugs became Chris's way of making money, Chris was constantly on his phone, gone for hours without being reachable, and stood her up for days. Chris also changed. He was smoking weed around the clock and getting really thin. Lacey estimated the weight loss to be about 40 pounds. Lacey was fed up and scared for Chris. Chris also got in a bad car accident in 2012. Lacey made him choose between her and drug dealing. Chris kept dealing, so they broke up. And Lacey said it felt like Chris was choosing Juan over her.
I want to show you some pictures. Dispense 17, which I believe admitted without objection.
Admitted.
These names here, Ferrer, these are some pictures that you gathered to the course of your work on the case. Let me show you some first.
Yes. That's Lacey and Chris, Christmas, getting ready for a Christmas party. Lacey sent those pictures to me via text. That was prom night. Walking out of Lacey's house, I believe. That was Chris's and Lacey's graduation day.
Any questions? All right, you may step down. And what's next? Michael Deskin. Michael, come on up. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you for your patience. Watch your step. Once you make it out here towards the front, if you raise your right hand, face Mr. Clerk for me. All right, you're going to have a seat right up there. Watch your step, and please talk directly into that microphone. And once you get yourself comfortable, if you would tell us your full name and spell it for us.
Michael Joseph Deskin, Michael Jdeskin.
You may proceed.
Thank you. And Mr. Deskin, where do you live?
I currently live in Stewart, Florida.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a real estate mortgage broker, and I rehab real estate, rent, sell.
And are you related to Sam Deskin?
I'm Uncle Mike.
Okay. So tell me a little bit first about your family.
I'm one of 6 kids. My older brother, Patrick, who Chris lived with for a little while. We have lots of siblings, big Italian family. Grew up in Juneau. My folks still live in the same house after 4 years. Lots of family members.
And how did you meet Christopher?
Through my nephew, Sam. They were friends, and then, as I said, Chris lived with my brother, Patrick, for a little while.
Did Christopher really become part of the Deskin family?
Absolutely. I saw him at family dinners, and that's really how I got to know who he was he was with Sam and Patrick and with the family, and we had family gatherings.
And was he accepted, liked by
absolutely.
the family?
Just like any of the other Italians in the family.
Did there come a time after graduation and all that Christopher actually asked to work with you?
Yes, he did.
And tell us about that.
He was interested, knew what I did. A lot of what I do is, pretty plain Jane. I fix up houses, rent them. Sometimes I fix them up and sell them. I represent people who are buying or selling properties, and he was interested in real estate and asked me if I could teach him. And I said, why don't you come help me work on one of the properties that I'm rehabbing, and we'll talk. That's how that came about.
And so what was his age at that point?
Early 20s.
Okay. So would he come to work with you?
Yeah. I would call. I don't rehab houses full time, but I occasionally get them, and I'll hire people, and I'll do some work myself, and I'll bring people in. And we had conversations over the phone, and I invited him to a job that I was doing, and we would work side by side and talk about real estate and being a real estate agent or fixing houses or renting houses, and he would work.
Was he sort of anxious to learn?
He was. I mean, so much so that the first day he worked with me, he wouldn't take any money. He said, just give it to Sam. And so he just wanted to learn, wanted to understand the business, and wanted to understand what I did.
And did he express a desire to be involved in some sort of profession or some kind of business?
Absolutely.
Like that?
I mean, we talked a lot about, the way the real estate market worked, but a lot of our conversations were geared towards getting a real estate license and something that he could do professionally, moving forward, get a career that he could go for his life.
Did you ever have an opportunity to meet his little younger stepbrother?
Yes, the last time Chris and I were together was one of the last houses that I did when I was seeing Chris. And I just called him one day and said, you want to work? I'm going to be at the house. And he asked if he could bring Junior. And I said, tell me about him. He said, well, he's a relative of mine, and, I just wanted to see what real work is like. And so he did. And it actually turned out to be a great day. I mean, he really cares for Junior a lot. And, we had a good time. We laughed. We worked hard, but I could really see that Chris cared about Junior and wanted him to have good things.
And was he trying to take sort of a role in Junior's life, providing some guidance and direction?
Yeah, when he called, I kind of questioned bringing someone younger to the job site, but, you know, his response was, I really want him to be able to see something other than the way I live. And, you know, a real work environment, something that is a profession or could be a profession.
And he wanted him to see a different way than he grew up?
That's what he said to me.
Very good. Thank you, Mr.
Rob?
Kiske, for being here.
Hey, step down, sir. Watch your step. Thank you. It's okay. So you want Ms. Ferrer? Come on up, ma'am. Oh. I didn't get to say my thing. All right, you're back. You're still under oath. Thank you.
I want to ask you about your work regarding an individual named Samantha Sanello in this case. Could you please tell the jury who she is and her significance?
Samantha Sanello was Christopher's girlfriend at the time of this offense.
Did you get a chance to interview her?
We interviewed her over the phone a few times. Yes, we spoke with her.
And back in 2017, did she actually come to the Office of the Public Defender to meet with some of the lawyers?
Yes, she came in twice in 2017, and then I think once in 2018, and then we have several contacts this year.
Why isn't she here today, to your knowledge?
Samantha suffers from high anxiety, and it was difficult for her to come in with live TV.
Streaming?
The streaming, yes.
Did you prepare a report based on your investigation with respect to Ms. Sanello?
Yes, I did.
If you could please share that with the jury.
Samantha Sanello was Christopher's girlfriend at the time of the offense. They started dating in 2015. Samantha lives in the Palm Beach Gardens area. She is a white woman with a slight build. She is 4 years younger than Christopher. She has long blonde hair, which she puts in a bun, and she wears eyeglasses. Samantha graduated from William T. Dwyer High School. She met Christopher through mutual friends in the summer of 2015 when Christopher was 22 years old. Samantha described Christopher as super nice and funny and said he treated her well. They called each other Sam and Chris. Samantha and Christopher did not break up until several months after Christopher was moved from the hospital to the jail to await trial. When asked if Christopher's arrest led to their breakup, Samantha responded that they hadn't been doing great when all this happened. They were arguing frequently. When I asked why, Samantha replied that Christopher was horribly stressed from trying to help everyone who asked him for money. Samantha said literally his whole family, as well as some friends and even friends of friends, asked him for money, and he could not turn anyone down. According to Samantha, a lot of Christopher's stress came from wanting to get out of drug dealing, but feeling stuck because of his family's financial demands. Christopher told Samantha that the only reason he even started selling drugs was to pay for college. It was clear to her that he did not want to be a drug dealer and had a lot he wanted to do with his life. Samantha noticed the stress affecting his eating and weight. She said that he stopped taking care of himself. Christopher also pulled his hair all the time. He knew he was doing it, but he couldn't stop. Samantha believed his family and friends were using Christopher for money. She thinks Christopher knew this was true, but he kept helping them anyways. He was helping multiple family members with rents and car payments. She described Christopher as being generous to a fault. When asked if Christopher was materialistic, she emphatically said, not at all. He wore cheap old clothes. Samantha would have to force Christopher to go buy new clothes, and she said that maybe he would go to Walmart. Christopher and Samantha spent most of their time at Samantha's home where she lived with her mom. He helped Samantha look after her nieces. They spent a lot of time with Juan Jr., Christopher's stepbrother, who was 12 years old. They called him Pops. They did not have any children together, but they got 2 dogs together, Charlie and Winston. Samantha described Christopher as a really big animal person who gets very attached to pets. She said he's amazing with animals. Their bulldog Winston got very sick almost immediately due to a genetic problem in its breed. This went on for several months, which was very expensive. Samantha is still raising both of these dogs. Every month, Christopher got what Samantha called cyclical vomiting. She described it as nonstop vomiting. Samantha said Christopher only went to the hospital because she made him go, and this was one of the ways that Christopher had stopped taking care of himself. He couldn't hold down water. He tried Gatorade and ice pops. Samantha said that Christopher was using cannabis every day, both shatter and leaf marijuana. Samantha said that it was his only thing. He didn't do drugs, he didn't drink, and he didn't party. When asked if she had ever met Christopher's mother, Debbie, Samantha said she had not because she didn't care to. Samantha said that Debbie is not a great mother and did nothing for Christopher, so she had no desire to meet that person. Debbie called Christopher when she wanted him to move or fix something at her house or needed help paying for something. She knew how Christopher made his money and accepted the money. Samantha told us that Christopher talked about Debbie a lot, but acted like he didn't care. He said she was never around because she was always working. Samantha said that Christopher doesn't realize how much he talked about her. He believed she didn't care about him. After the shooting, Samantha went to the hospital every day to visit Christopher until he was moved to the medical wing of the Palm Beach County Jail. Christopher was in the hospital for approximately 2 months. Debbie visited once or twice. Samantha has met Christopher's stepfather Juan. She said that Juan is a good dad and that Christopher is really close to that side of the family, especially his little stepbrother. Christopher told Samantha that Juan was very involved when growing up and gave him everything. He said that Juan cared about his behavior and how he did in school. Samantha acknowledged knowing that Juan was also a drug dealer and that he was in business with Christopher. Samantha added that Christopher was trying to help his dad make more money because there was a lot of issues in Juan's household. His wife's drug problem was very expensive because she totaled multiple cars while driving under the influence, and she was in and out of jail. She said that Christopher was almost out of drug dealing when the shooting happened. He was spending almost every day that he wasn't sick outside painting houses all day, and was planning on starting a small business cleaning lawns of pet owners. A search of Florida Division of Corporations confirms that Christopher Vasata filed articles of incorporation for Pooh Patrol, Inc. on January 23, 2017.
Did Ms. Sanello also send you some pictures?
I received some pictures from her via text.
I have defense 15 here, which I believe was submitted without objection.
All right, admitted.
Yes, Christopher, Samantha, and her baby sister. That is Christopher with their dog Winston. That is Christopher sleeping, and Winston to his back, and Charlie is up on his head. Christopher was Winston. That was when Winston was a pup after he recovered.
And you said that Samantha still is raising these dogs?
She's raising both dogs, yes. She sent the pictures of the dogs.
I'd like to show you one more document. This is defense 18, without objection.
Admitted. No problem.
I think I need glasses. I know what that is because I have seen it before, but if you can put it closer, yes. Yes, that is the registration for the Pooh Patrol, Inc. It's the corporation that Christopher Vasata was thinking about opening, and he registered the name in January of 2017.
From your work on this case, did you learn what Pooh Patrol was? Like what the plan was?
To go offer the services to clean poo from lawns around the neighborhoods.
That's all I have.
No cross. You may step down. Can I see the lawyers at the bench? Oh, you do? Okay, great. Who's the next witness? Mr. Thomason? You also know the drill.
Yes, sir.
Charles Thomason.
And Mr. Thomason, we talked earlier about your role with our office, and part of your duties are to gather medical records.
Yes.
And in this case, did you gather records from Jupiter Medical Center?
Yes, ma'am.
Show you what is marked and admitted without objection.
All right. 19 admitted.
Are those the records you collected from Jupiter Medical Center?
Yes, they are.
And those records detail a number of visits that Christopher had to the emergency room from August 2015 through September 2016 because of this reaction he was having to using high levels of THC.
Yes, they do.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. You can stay here. You can step down. The rest of you come on up. Okay. So we're going to break for the day and have you all come back, jurors, at 9:30 tomorrow morning. 9:30. We're going to try to get everything put together. If you recall, when I had the jury instructions for you at the end of the guilt phase, it literally took the copy machine 30 minutes to make all those copies. We made 26 copies, so I don't want to get in that situation, although this packet's going to be much, much, much smaller. And it won't take me so long to read it, but I don't want you guys wasting your time waiting for us. So we're going to stay here this afternoon and try to get those things in order, and then we're going to put the finishing touches on them in the morning before you get here, and hopefully when you get here at 9:30, we'll hit the ground running. We expect to do closings around 1:30, and get you deliberating on the issue sometime around 2:30 or so. And then the ball's in your court. Everybody understand what's happening? Same rules. Don't read anything. Don't listen to anything. Don't talk about the case in any way, shape, or form. I know you've deliberated and reached a verdict. I don't want you to talk about anything at all, please. And then my 2 alternate jurors, because now you know who you are, we still need you, and we don't know. Life is going on out there for all of us, including this judge, and some things going on, but I'm committed to get this done for you as we promised. We actually may land the plane a day early. We said the 28th, and we expect it to be done tomorrow. Your deliberations are up to you. That's just a matter of how long you need, and I will not rush you. Yes, ma'am. Sure you can. Okay, so, and also, folks, because the jury instructions, I see you all still carrying them, it looks like. Those are not going to be necessary anymore. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your jury instructions and just lay them on the floor. Your pads leave on your chairs. We're going to keep those, lock them up, and then tomorrow sometime I'm going to have a new packet for you. And Deputy Dunkley, you're going to collect those jury instructions and destroy them in case they have notes on them. Everything's for your eyes only, okay? Any questions? 9:30, same drill as we've been doing. Have a good evening. Thank you for your patience. All right, so lawyers, why don't we take a 10, 15-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll just do a run through. A 15-minute break? Yeah, sure. Mr. Vasata, you know you're welcome to be here. You're also welcome then to, so you don't feel the need to be here. Okay. And then corrections, you're happy. You can take them. All right, you got it, guys. Thank you for your assistance during the trial.